few
Malcolm,
years.
you're up.
Okay. Does everyone hear me?
Yes.
A little low.
A little low?
A little louder.
A few years
There it
ago,
is.
my life took what at that time seemed to be a minor turn. I started a website devoted to the Montreal Bicycle Club. Soon after that, going down that path, I started seeing ghosts, and there's no turning back. Mr. Chairman, fellow Rotarians, and most welcome guests, I'm not alone in seeing ghosts in Montreal. On Mount Royal, an Algonquin warrior has been spotted. In Griffintown, a decapitated Mary Gallagher led to roam. These ghosts amuse themselves by scaring tourists. No. The cycling spirits that I refer to have very different motives. Back then, I work with a group of cycling advocates, like-minded people who want to fight climate change, build a safer, more livable city. From that work, I gradually became aware of this ghostly club that existed here in Montreal long before there were any cars. Back then, they were well known, respected, first users of a new technology with dreams of changing the world. But the 20th century was not kind to these ghosts. They were forgotten. Contrary to what they had predicted, the new century started with electric trolleys rather than bicycles dominating the streets. Then, by mid-century, this city, along with many others, was transformed to accommodate the car. These ghosts watch over us. They know that Montreal may soon be one of the best cycling cities in the world. They hear our debates about climate change, road rage, even social gathering. I was the perfect mark for their plans. They sought me out, forced me to become their spokesperson for how Montreal and cycling have long been linked. First, they commanded that I do much more than start an historical website. I had to refound an authentic Montreal Bicycle Club, following the same rituals and conventions that they had created. These phantoms called their rides fixtures. Yes, that's right, fixtures, F-I-X-T-U-R-E-S. So the living club must use the same term. Also, these spirits demanded that a club worthy of their name must have 3 to 4 fixtures a week. When I started the website, I was unaware that these ghosts have a mania for making minutes a meeting. Every ride has to be documented in the minute book. Oh, I did everything to appease these ghosts, organizing rides, slaving away on my website, but I could never satisfy them. One ghost, Louis Rubenstein, would complain to me saying, "Why do so few people today know who I was? Thousands came to the World Cycling Championships that I brought to Montreal. It was held at an outdoor velodrome encompassing multiple city blocks. Today, it's so forgotten that even its location in the city of Verdun has become a matter of debate." These spirits, like Louis Rubenstein, directed me to study club legends long forgotten. I had to learn obscure trivia Like, who was the first person to cycle up Côte de Neige Hill? Little Bertie Lane. I love obscure trivia. I needed help. These ghosts kept demanding more and more changes to the website. Explain why they wore ranks and wore military-style uniforms. Did they allow women to join? Why did the club disappear after hosting the World Championships? Oh, living club members are now telling me that they too have heard from cycling spirits demanding that I update the website to include their life stories. One of them, an H.G. Ross, I only knew as a racing cyclist with a mania for covering his chest with medals. A living club member now informs me that Canada now has a National Lifetime Achievement Award named after him. Recently, during the COVID crisis, an old Notman photograph of the club was discovered and brought to my attention. I've been spending my COVID isolation time identifying where this photograph was taken and who are the people in it. Fellow Rotarians, these cycling ghosts are demanding yet fair. The cause they promote is right for our times. Out of nowhere, people have been asking me questions about the club and what I think about the cycling paths around Montreal. Could there have been some ghostly influence involved? This path began as a simple exercise of posting a few pictures to a website. But once you start seeing ghosts, there's no turning back. Is there any reaction? Oh. Hello?
Sorry, I muted everybody, so they can't, yes, everybody's there and they're all watching, but I've muted everybody, so just because there was background noise. Sorry about that.
It seemed a very quiet reaction.
Great ghost story.
Okay. I did that presentation was one I prepared for Toastmasters yesterday. And I thought it would be sort of a good little introduction to the fact that I built a website and have a bicycle club, and basically just show the Rotary Club now that a few items from the website and what we do as a bicycle club. Are there any immediate questions that people would like to ask? Or
is the club?
Why did the club fail?
Sorry?
Go, James.
Malcolm.
Why did the 19th century club peter out?
Well, there was used to, in the 1890s, that was known as the bicycle craze, the worldwide bicycle craze, and it was like the most popular sport in the world at that time was cycling, and it went through a boom and bust. You know, it spiked up with an enormous popularity. It exploded, and entire newspapers had entire issues devoted to cycling. And then suddenly, when the bicycle was not quite as new and novel, the interest disappeared, and almost all the clubs around the world disappeared. And Montreal was really just one of a worldwide movement that way. But Montreal held the World Championship at the end of the 1899 World Championship. So it was the last championship of that era.
Malcolm, I could offer a couple of things. My previous club in Picton holds an event every year, a fundraising event called the Lilac Ride. Obviously not going to be held this year, but the lilac bushes come out towards the end of May. and they have a 25, a 50, and 100-kilometer route and raise several $1,000s. And the lanes around Prince Edward County are beautiful with the lilac in full bloom. And maybe your club next year would like to take a weekend trip to Prince Edward County and participate in that.
Okay. That's a perfect, Prince Edward County seems to be coming up since we had the presentation on that last week. And I think that's a very good question to lead into the share presentation where we talk. I was just going to basically show a little bit about the rides we have taken and a little bit about the historical photograph that I've been working.
Have you ever cycled in Holland?
I've been to Holland a number of times, but I've never as part of a cycling trip. I know it's the sort of one of the Holland and Denmark are considered like the top two places in the world.
Yeah.
Malcolm, it's Tom. When did the big bicycle wheels go to the smaller ones, and why?
Well, it was the high wheel bicycle. Let me describe what you're referring to is at the time was known as a high wheel bicycle.
Yes.
And it was invented before what was now the safety bicycle. Okay, so the reason the high wheel basically when they added spokes to the wheels, the idea of putting spokes on it allowed them to build very big wheels, and that was invented before the other components of the bicycle. So in order to go fast, the idea was you build as big a wheel as possible, and then for every rotation you will go further. And so they were the fastest, human-powered way of traveling at that time. And then later, as people developed chains and gears and pneumatic tires, what was the modern bicycle, which is the safety bicycle at that time, became predominant. And they stopped calling it the high wheel. They started calling it the ordinary. As to distinguish it from the modern safety bicycle.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks.
And so part of that photograph I have was the transition period between the high wheel and the safety bicycle, when about half the people were using the old-fashioned ordinaries and the other half were using the newer safeties.
Thank you.
Malcolm, did they never call it the penny farthing, which they did in England?
Well, the penny farthing was a term that came up in around the 1920s. It was to make it a nostalgic thing about pennies and farthings, and an association of the two wheel sizes. But during the time when it was actually used, it was never called a penny farthing. It was only. We call them penny farthings today, and they have penny races and things like that. But the term, the bicycle was obsolete by the time they started calling it that. So I thought I'd just give, if we could put on the share. I'll put on the share screen.
Yeah, you can go ahead and share the screen. I'm going to go back and mute everybody again, just because I hear a little bit of background noise. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to mute everybody, and then I'll unmute you, okay? Okay, so you should be able to go. Can you, no, oh no, hold on. Malcolm?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, now I can hear you. Okay. I'm going to mute myself. Anytime you're ready. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I've lost something here. Do you see the share screen?
Yes, we do. It's a July fixture ride to Chateauguay River.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll try to get the right one. Excuse me, people. I'm a bit lost. I don't know where I am. Okay. Just because I was doing a display that we had this mania for minutes of meeting, and we were talking about Prince Edward County. I did last year take a bike tour on Prince Edward County.
Oh, congratulations, Mel.
Yeah. Okay. And just I'm having. Okay. And for that ride, I went there by train to.
Sorry,
Belleville.
Malcolm, you're just going to have to minimize your the virtual background, the instruction. Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
These rides we typically we try to avoid, going off on a car, then riding a bike, and then returning by car, because I find it it eats up a lot of time on that. And typically I try to go on a train ride and then do a bike back into Montreal if it's like a suburban train, or in this case it was we took via trains, and we had to use folding bikes because in order to put them on the train, you had to take a folding bike. So this was me getting off at Belleville and then riding into Prince Edward County along the waterfront trail, which you can see is aptly named. There's all the water on the trail, and crossing into Prince Edward County, and then when you enter Wellington, it's very rough, the trail there. It's got like a very sort of loose gravel until you come to Wellington itself. And there's some pictures of us having dinner in Wellington. And then the following day we rode to Picton, took the ferry across to the mainland, and what the roads are like. I often take pictures of what the actual paths are like between Picton and Kingston. The highway 2 sometimes has wide shoulders, which are okay for cycling, and sometimes not. And then sometimes within the town itself, they actually have bicycle paths. There's a few pictures of the Olympic Harbor in Kingston. And then we took the train back, and I happened to see someone on a electric unicycle. And that was.
Sorry to interrupt, Malcolm, but just to tell you that trail that you took was the old railway line.
Yes, I know.
From Trenton, and the Wellington Rotary Club were totally responsible for refurbishing it at their own expense.
Is that right? I know it's called the Millennium Trail, and the portion Wellington to Picton is very nice. When you go further west from Wellington, to the border of Prince Edward County, I think that it's very swampy, and they put in this very sort of loose gravel, and it made it hard to ride on. But once you were in Prince Edward County, the trail was far better than the actual mainland part around Trenton itself. I mean, it was a trail in name only. It really didn't exist. But so in the, this is a bit annoying, you can't see the thing. I'll go straight now to talking about the, oh, it's not doing this. Excuse me, I'm gonna close this. Okay. This photograph is the photograph from 1892, which was sort of in the transition period between when they were using safety bicycles and high wheel bicycles, where it's a mixture of the two types that you see in the photograph. And it was unknown that it existed until during the COVID crisis. Someone emailed me, and as a rare book dealer in Pennsylvania told me that they had this photograph. And so the last couple of weeks, I sort of spent my time investigating what was in it and, you know, what was the story behind it. And the background is the Fleming windmill in LaSalle. And you can see from the this photograph, you know, where it had two blades in the 1892 photograph, but now there are no blades on the windmill. And these are just some pictures I took of the historical plaques around the windmill, which is a rather historic thing. It was a part of a big legal dispute between the Catholic Church and the rights as to whether a person could build a windmill or on this island, Montreal, without the permission of the church or not. And the top part of the photograph are the officers of the club. And I looked in the old minute book and I got the list of who these people were and basically which ones of these could be identified. And the McCord Museum has the actual individual photos which make up the small vignettes on this. So number 4, you see over here, is W.S. Weldon, and the McCord has that photograph when it was as an individual, which is used as a vignette in the composite. And as you go through the vignettes, you see that these various McCord photographs that they have are the same ones that appear in the top of this recently discovered photograph, composite. And this is the Louis Rubenstein who I referred to in the speech. And I think Ross, I believe he's number 12 in this vignettes. And then as you go down the main group, there's a total of, I counted 69 people in the main group. And again, the McCord has a great number of the individual photos which make up the composite. You see on this one on the extreme left is the same photograph of this person here standing on by the edge of the composite. And for example, this guy who's sitting on a fence with his legs, you know, on the second bar of the fence is actually, this was the Notman photograph that they used to put that into the composite where he's actually on this bench. And you can see the bicycle stand in the background, which they used to prop up the high wheel bicycles so they could pose in the studio as if they were riding. So see if I have one with the person actually on a bicycle. You see that's the stand that they used. And going down, investigating it further, the McCord has within that group of 18, a number of photographs which they took as individuals, but they don't appear in the overall composite. So it appears that some of these poses were planned, but weren't actually used in the final. For example, this fellow sitting on a bench does not appear in the overall composite. Whereas if you look at number 51 here, which is Louis Rubinstein's brother, he, 51, this is him posing for the lying position in the lower right. But that one was used, but not the one down below. And this was there were a series of races that were held at what is now the WAG, the Westmount Athletic Grounds, which were formerly the MAAA grounds, where they had a series of races with, in that year, with safety and ordinary bicycles competing against each other. And so this was an ad for those races, and Louis Rubinstein's in there saying, "Don't be a monkey of yourself and ride a high wheel, get a Ridge safety bicycle that he would sell you." And this was an article where they do mention the composite photograph being taken. That is a poster of the races from that year, which show the ordinary bicycles and the safeties and the categories of the races they had. And this is a handwritten list of the various club members and how many tickets they sold to the races, which indirectly gives you sort of who were the club members at that time. And it shows which members had sold tickets, and do I actually have photographs of them, and do they appear in the overall composite? For example, this H. Brown, if you click here, he's one of the photographs within the composite. And some of these, while going through this and trying to find who these people were, I found that some of them were actually also on the first Stanley Cup champion, and had actually been the winning goal scorer for the first Stanley Cup. And that was what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, trying to figure out what this was. So any questions?
Not exactly about the club, Malcolm, but I'm just wondering, do you cycle in the winter? And how would you rate Montreal as, on a scale of whatever, a cycle friendly?
I cycle in the winter when the weather's not so bad. I don't like going out when it's really icy. If the roads are clear, I do cycle. And so we've had rides where we organize, so basically throughout the winter, if the weather's not bad. Typically we go over the Champlain Bridge and ride along the South Shore and come back, or something like that in the winter time. How would I rank Montreal overall as a cycling city? I'd say it's amongst the best in.
You're muted. You got muted, Malcolm, so that your response didn't come through.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry, that's my fault. I was trying to block out the background noise and I went to unmute. It's my fault. I'm sorry.
Just started what you think about Montreal.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm not sure how far I got on that.
You got cut off just as you were starting to talk about the Montreal.
Okay, so first part was, do I cycle in the winter? And
that we got.
Yeah, okay. And I would say Montreal is amongst the best cities in North America for cycling. But in terms of comparing it to the best cities in Europe, it's much inferior. And Montreal, Velo Quebec does have a very extensive sort of intercity road bicycle path network, which I think is most of the people who don't cycle on it don't really appreciate just how extensive it is. I mean, I've cycled from Mount Laurier through to Montreal, through Sherbrooke to Quebec City, and basically to Saint Anne de Beaupré, and you can do this all on bicycle path. There's not on road at all.
How often do you have to pay for that, Malcolm, to go on the paths?
Never.
Okay, because up at St. Agathe, they have a path, but you have to pay.
Which path is that?
The one that goes by the railway station.
The Petit Train du Nord.
I think they tried paying it. I've been on it in the last couple of years. There wasn't any fee for it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. No, I think there was. They tried collecting the fees, and it was so hard to police, they just gave up on it. Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Malcolm, did they give you any history of the individual members? I noticed the first one you pointed out was a man named Weldon.
Yeah, Weldon.
That struck a chord because the first city attorney for Westmount was Joe Weldon, and the second one was his son Arthur Weldon, whom we knew.
Okay, the Weldon I have up there was W.C. Weldon, and he was the manager for the Windsor Hotel. And there's a 4 or 5 photographs that the McCord has about him, and there was some, when I Googled his name, I get references to stationery that showed his name as, being involved with the Windsor Hotel. But that's a lot of the attraction of this, is that you get basically the family histories of all these people. Yeah.
Malcolm, what was the relationship of the actual club to the Montreal MAA?
Okay, there were 3 clubs that joined together to make the MAA. Those clubs were the lacrosse club, the snowshoe club, and the bicycle club. And the 3 clubs pooled their resources in order to buy what was called the Montreal Gymnasium. It was a big clubhouse, which none of them could individually afford, but combined they could do that. And so that formed the MAAA. And so the MAAA was an amalgamation of initially it was just those 3 clubs, and then they brought in other sports, and the popularity of the various sports within the club would go up and down. But it existed as a club within the MAAA. So these races and things, they show the Montreal Bicycle Club affiliated with the MAAA and the CWA, which was the Canadian Wheelmen's Association, or they were affiliated for a while with the League of American Wheelmen or whatever, So it's what's
wrong with you?
Yeah. Hello.
Another little bit of history. Did the original bike club build
Sorry,
behind.
I can't hear you.
No. You made reference to the track behind the Westmount High, which was originally an MAA sports ground. Who built that? Do you know?
The MAA built it. It was built in 1890, just before that photograph. The reason they built it is that when the three clubs initially combined, they had what they used to call the lacrosse ground, which was the area just around Crescent Street near Concordia University. Was a big tract of land that the owner allowed them to use for sporting events, and they called it the lacrosse grounds. So the lacrosse grounds and the bicycle club, they held I think they played cricket, lacrosse, and they held cycling races there. And then the owner of the lacrosse grounds eventually sold it, and so they had to build their own grounds, and they purchased the land in order to
Get
build
over there.
the MAAA grounds. And they had a very big grandstand where the present high school is. And I think in the 30s that the club ran into financial trouble, and so they had to sell the grounds to Westmount, and then Westmount took it over from them. But it was built in part because there was a mania for, it was just at the very start of the safety bicycle era. And there was a tremendous interest in cycling racing, and the MAAA built that track initially for the bicycle club as a venue for racing. And they would use it, the inner area for all the other sports.
Which it still was for bikes.
Yes, they used it, well, for running races and for bicycle racing. Now, the World Championship, which was held in 1899, even though it was a very big grandstand, it wouldn't have been big enough for the World Championships. And they also wanted to have a faster track, so they needed a highly banked wooden track. So they built one in Verdun called Queen's Park, which held, off the top of my head, I think it was like 30,000 or 40,000 people or something like that. And that's where they held the 1899 World Championship. And there was a very significant winner of this, was the first Black American to win a World Championship, was held in Montreal. It was at Queen's Park in Verdun. He was Major Taylor. He went on to, if you Google him, you'll find there's all kinds of YouTube videos, tremendous amount of interest in Major Taylor. And there's a number of books about him that have been published recently. Basically, he had, after winning the World Championship, he became like the